We've all been there. Someone walks away from you, thinking they've made the right choice, like you were just another chapter in their story. But what they don't realize is, you weren't just another page. You were the plot twist they'll never forget. He let you go. Maybe he thought the grass was greener. Maybe he didn't think you'd move on. Maybe he didn't even bother to fight for you. But now karma's doing the work you never had to. Because when someone lets go of something real, someone loyal, loving, evolving, it doesn't end with goodbye. It ends with regret. And here's the truth no one tells him: when you finally start choosing yourself, that's when he loses you for real. Let's talk about what happens next. Not to him, but to you. He thought you'd wait. That's the mistake. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he believed you'd always be there, that no matter how inconsistent he was, no matter how many times he pulled away, you'd stay rooted, waiting patiently for him to come around. Why? Because you loved him. Because you saw the potential in him. Because you gave him chance after chance, even when it hurt. But love isn't a promise of forever if one person is doing all the work. And what he didn't realize, what so many people don't realize until it's too late, is that even the most patient heart has its limit. In the beginning, you may have been more understanding. You made excuses for his emotional unavailability. You told yourself he was just scared, or healing, or needed time. You tried to be the safe place for him to land. You were empathetic, loyal, and maybe even a little too forgiving. And each time he pulled away, you gave him space. Each time he showed up half-heartedly, you told yourself, at least he came back. But deep down, something was breaking, not loudly, but slowly, quietly, piece by piece. He got comfortable in that dynamic. He thought your love was unconditional in the way that meant unending, no matter how he showed up. He misread your loyalty as permanence. But here's the truth: you weren't waiting because you had no choice. You were waiting because you believed in him. Until one day, you didn't. Until one day, you looked at the version of yourself you had become in that relationship, drained, anxious, questioning your worth, and realized that this wasn't what love was supposed to feel like. So you stopped waiting. Not in a dramatic, final conversation, door-slamming way. You just detached, quietly, gracefully. You started showing up for yourself instead of him. You stopped checking your phone, hoping he'd text. You stopped rehearsing what you'd say if he finally opened up. You stopped making him the center of a life he barely showed up in. And that was the shift he never saw coming. He thought the danger was in you leaving loudly. What he didn't realize was that the real threat was you leaving silently. When you're done, really done, there's no announcement, no warning. Just a calm, confident kind of letting go. And that's when it hits him. That's when regret creeps in. That's when he starts thinking about all the times you were there, all the ways you showed up for him when he didn't deserve it. He remembers the consistency, the effort, the softness you brought into his life. And suddenly, he realizes he's not entitled to any of it anymore. Now he's the one wondering if you've moved on, wondering if someone else gets to wake up to your energy, your kindness, your loyalty. He's hoping you still think of him, hoping it's not too late. But it is, because the version of you he knew doesn't exist anymore. That woman, the one who waited, the one who kept holding space, she evolved. She learned that love should never be a waiting game. She learned that being chosen isn't something you should have to earn. It should be effortless, reciprocal. He let you go. And now he's the one stuck with the realization that someone like you doesn't come around twice. And that's the kind of karma that doesn't come with fire and fury. It comes with silence, absence, and the weight of knowing he lost something real. Karma doesn't always come crashing in like a storm. It doesn't always look like revenge or some big moment of reckoning. Sometimes it's much quieter than that. Sometimes it's the silence that follows after you finally stop reaching out. It's the absence of your energy, your voice, your effort. It's the way you go still, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You simply stop trying. And that silence, it says everything. It's louder than any fight, louder than any goodbye. It lingers. He doesn't notice it right away. At first, he thinks you're just giving him space again, like you always did. He assumes you'll come back around, that you'll check in, make the first move, forgive like before. He's counting on your pattern, on your softness. But something's different this time. You're not angry. You're not chasing. You're just gone. That's when karma starts doing its work. Not through drama, but through the quiet realization that he's no longer part of your world. You see, when you love deeply and show up fully, your presence becomes something people depend on. Your texts, your support, your laughter, your listening ear. They all become part of their comfort zone. He got used to the idea that you were always going to be there, that no matter how little he gave, you'd give enough for both of you. But now, it's not there. He goes to look at his phone, and there's nothing. No, how are you? No, I miss you. No breadcrumbs from you trying to keep the connection alive. Just quiet. And that quiet doesn't go unnoticed. It starts to echo. He begins to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, how you suddenly stopped needing him. At first, it's curiosity. Then it becomes discomfort. And eventually, it becomes regret. Because in that silence, he's not just missing you. He's being forced to sit with himself, with the choices he made, with the way he pushed away someone who actually cared, with the fact that he didn't fight for something that was real. And now, there's no one else to blame. There's no big argument for him to replay in his head. No final dramatic scene where he can say, she overreacted. There's just him and the growing realization that you've moved on, not just physically, but emotionally. That silence tells him everything he needs to know. That you're not waiting anymore. That your love came with a limit. That he doesn't get to circle back whenever it's convenient. The hardest part for him isn't seeing you with someone else. It's knowing that you no longer even think about him in the way you used to. That he no longer occupies the same space in your heart. That someone who once would have done anything for him is now living peacefully without him. And that peace, that's what keeps him up at night. Because it's not built on anger or revenge. It's built on acceptance, on growth, on you finally choosing yourself. People think karma is about payback, but often karma is just truth served cold. It's someone finally experiencing the consequences of their own choices. Not because you wish them harm, but because you stopped cushioning the fall. You stopped catching them every time they slipped. And now they feel the full weight of what they lost. Silence is powerful. It doesn't beg, it doesn't plead, it doesn't argue, it just removes itself. And when someone has grown used to your noise, the joy, the care, the constant presence, your silence becomes deafening. That's karma, not loud, not angry, just the undeniable absence of everything they took for granted. While he was busy forgetting what he had, you were busy becoming everything he'll never have again. That's the thing about real loss. It's never obvious in the beginning. When he let you go, he probably thought he was moving forward. Maybe he thought he could find better. Maybe he believed you'd always be an option if nothing else worked out. But what he didn't see coming was your glow up. He didn't anticipate that the very thing he walked away from would evolve into something stronger, happier, and untouchable. You didn't fall apart like he expected. Sure, it hurt. You cried, you questioned, you replayed everything in your mind. Every conversation, every red flag, every moment you compromised to make things work. But pain has a strange way of becoming fuel. Little by little, you turned that heartbreak into healing. You stopped asking why he didn't choose you, and you started choosing yourself. You poured energy into your growth, your peace, your purpose. And day by day, you began to rise. Not for him to notice, but because you finally realized you were worth more than being someone's almost. Meanwhile, he stayed the same. That's the part people don't talk about. How often the person who leaves you ends up stuck, while you transform. He thought leaving meant freedom, that he'd feel lighter, clearer, maybe even happier. But instead of leveling up, he ended up looking back. Because what he didn't understand is that walking away from someone good doesn't bring peace. It brings questions. Especially when that person starts to thrive without you. Especially when they stop trying to prove their worth and just start living it. Your glow up wasn't just physical, though maybe that happened too. You smiled more, laughed louder, carried yourself with a confidence that only comes after choosing to heal. You became magnetic, not because of revenge, but because of release. You let go of needing closure, needing validation, needing him. That's when everything started to shift. You weren't bitter. You weren't competing. You were simply better, better than you were when he knew you. And nothing messes with someone's mind more than seeing the person they once had become the version they always hoped for, but without them. That's karma in real time. Not an explosion, not some huge downfall. Just you, glowing. Just him, stuck with regret. Because now he's watching from the sidelines, realizing too late that he underestimated your strength. He's remembering all the times you showed up, all the things you gave freely, your love, your support, your patience. And now, those things aren't his to receive anymore. He's seeing what you've become and realizing that he played himself, that he didn't just lose someone, he lost the chance to grow with someone who was evolving right in front of him. And no matter what he does now, who he dates, what stories he tells himself, there's a part of him that knows he won't find that same energy again. Because you don't duplicate a connection like that. You don't replicate someone who would have done anything for you. That kind of loyalty, that kind of softness paired with strength, doesn't come around twice. So while he's scrolling through your photos, wondering if you still think of him, you're out there living, loving, rising, not for him but for you. And that's the irony. He thought leaving would free him, but it only left him haunted. Because now, your glow is the reminder of everything he gave up. And his only role in your story now is being the one who let you go. He thought breaking up meant breaking free. That once he ended things, he'd feel lighter, more in control, less tied down. Maybe he thought there was something better out there. A different kind of excitement, more space to breathe, less emotional responsibility. He convinced himself that letting you go would give him peace. But peace doesn't come from leaving someone who loved you. It doesn't come from avoiding growth or skipping the work that real intimacy requires. And now, as the dust settles, the feeling he's left with isn't peace. It's something much heavier missing you. He didn't plan for that. He figured you'd miss him, not the other way around. He thought he'd be the one in the driver's seat, moving on while you stayed stuck wondering what went wrong. But what he never accounted for was how it would feel to live without the version of you that showed up for him no matter what. He didn't factor in how deeply your presence anchored him, even when he didn't acknowledge it. You were a constant in his life. Even when he was unsure, even when he pulled away, you were there. He felt that energy. He may not have known how to appreciate it, but he noticed when it disappeared. Now he's in the quiet. No more check-ins. No more late night calls where you gave him space to be vulnerable. No more gentle reminders that he mattered. He underestimated how rare that kind of connection was. He thought it could be found again. Easily, effortlessly, without having to give more of himself. But what he's learning is that not every connection is equal. Not every relationship is deep. And not every woman would have stayed the way you did, with a heart that gave even when it was unsure if it would be received. That's where the missing comes in. It starts subtly. Maybe he hears a song that reminds him of the way you used to sing in the car. Maybe someone asks him about you and he brushes it off. But later, he can't stop thinking about the way your smile made things feel safe. Then it deepens. He starts remembering how you made hard days feel easier. How you listened, really listened, when he talked about things he didn't even know how to say out loud before you. And then he realizes, you weren't just someone in his life. You were his peace, his mirror, his anchor, and now you're gone. The irony is that in leaving, he thought he was claiming control. But now, he's spinning in the aftermath, because the truth is, what he thought was freedom was actually fear. Fear of showing up fully. Fear of being seen. Fear of vulnerability. And now, he's sitting in a quiet he didn't expect to be so loud, filled with memories, with echoes of conversations, with the feeling of your absence pressing in where your presence used to hold space. He misses you, not just because he loved you, but because you loved him in a way he didn't know how to receive. And now, can't forget. You offered him something steady, real, and rare. And while he thought walking away would bring him clarity, all it brought was contrast. Because everything he finds now feels shallow in comparison. It lacks the depth, the safety, the quiet magic you brought just by being who you are. And that's the kind of missing that lingers. Not the kind that fades with time, but the kind that lives in small reminders, in quiet moments, in the realization that he didn't just lose someone. He lost something he might never feel again. There's a moment, subtle but powerful, when everything shifts, when you stop asking why he didn't choose you, when you stop trying to understand what else you could have done to be seen, to be loved, to be enough. And in that moment, something inside you clicks. You realize the real power was always yours. The moment you start choosing yourself, everything changes, not just in you, but around you. The dynamic flips, the tables turn, and suddenly the one who kept you waiting is the one left behind. He got used to you giving, to you over-explaining, to you doing the emotional heavy lifting, and he mistook that kindness for weakness. He thought he could show up halfway and still be met with your whole heart, because for a long time you were trying to be patient, to be understanding, to love him through his confusion. You believed that if you just held on a little longer, he'd catch up. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't require you to shrink. It doesn't ask you to wait in emotional limbo. And once you see that clearly, there's no unseeing it. You start showing up differently. You speak less and observe more. You stop justifying your standards. You stop explaining why you deserve more. You stop begging to be chosen. Because deep down, you finally believe what you were hoping he'd see all along, that your worth isn't negotiable, that your love isn't a consolation prize, that the real flex isn't getting someone to choose you, it's choosing yourself so fiercely that anyone who can't rise to meet you simply fades out. And that's when the shift happens for him, when he senses that the energy has changed, that you're no longer accessible in the same way. You're not cold. You're not angry. You're just done over-functioning. He notices that your responses are shorter, your availability less predictable. You're not cruel. You're just no longer sacrificing yourself to keep him comfortable. And suddenly he starts to realize what he had. Not just someone who loved him, but someone who showed up, who stayed, who believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. He feels it, the imbalance, the loss of your warmth. And that's when karma shows up, not as revenge, but as reflection. Because now, he's the one left trying to figure it out. He's the one wondering if you're thinking about him. If there's still a way back in. If it's too late. He starts reaching out, maybe subtly at first, maybe more directly. But the timing's off now, because what he doesn't realize, that you didn't just walk away, you evolved. You grew into someone who no longer clings to almosts. Now you're being noticed by people who see you immediately, who don't need convincing, who match your energy from day one. And not because you became someone else, but because you finally let go of trying to be enough for someone who couldn't see you. That kind of peace radiates. That kind of confidence attracts. And that's what really stings. Not that he lost you, but that someone else now gets the version of you he couldn't appreciate. The power dynamic has flipped, not out of vengeance, but out of growth. You're no longer waiting. You're no longer settling. You're simply moving forward, aligned with your own worth. And for him, that's the moment he realizes what he lost. Not when you left, but when you stopped needing to be chosen. When you became the one who does the choosing. And suddenly, he's no longer part of the story, just a lesson in a chapter you've already closed. Regret has a funny way of creeping in. Slow at first, then all at once. At the time he let you go, he didn't think he'd feel this. He may have felt justified, maybe even relieved, telling himself it was the right decision, that he needed space, freedom, something different. But now, what he's left with isn't relief. It's the quiet weight of knowing he let something rare slip through his fingers. And the worst part, his wake-up call came too late. You see, people don't always realize what they had until they're faced with the reality of its absence. At first, he might have filled the silence with distractions. New people, new routines, anything to keep from sitting with the choice he made. But those distractions only go so far. Eventually the noise fades, the novelty wears off, and all that's left is the truth. That someone who genuinely loved him, believed in him, and stood by him no matter what is gone. And not just physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually gone. You've detached, you've healed, you've grown. And he's still stuck in the version of life where you were always there. He starts remembering the small things. The way you laughed at his dumb jokes. How you always knew when something was wrong without him having to say a word. How you made even the worst days feel manageable just by being there. And now, none of that belongs to him anymore. He doesn't get access to your softness, your presence, your peace. All those things that once came so freely to him are now being protected. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You're no longer the same woman who was trying to prove her worth to someone who couldn't see it. That's the part that eats at him. The realization that he didn't just lose someone who loved him. He lost the version of you that would have done anything for him. And that version doesn't exist anymore. You outgrew her. You had to. She waited. She hoped. She tried. And in the end, she learned. She learned that love isn't supposed to be begged for. It's not supposed to feel like a gamble. And once she understood that, there was no going back. Now every smile you post, every moment of joy he sees from a distance, it stings. Because it's a reminder that your life didn't pause when he left. It continued. It expanded. It flourished. And he's no longer part of the picture. That's what regret looks like. Not some dramatic emotional outburst, but a quiet H. A constant rewind of, what if, playing in the background of his mind. He tells himself he might reach out. That maybe there's still a chance. But deep down, he knows the version of you who would have answered with open arms isn't the one who'd pick up now. Not because you're angry. Not because you're trying to make him suffer. But because you finally understand the cost of making space for someone who wasn't ready to match your effort. And once you learn that lesson, you don't unlearn it. He let you go, and now karma won't let him rest, not through punishment, but through clarity. Through those long, quiet nights where his thoughts won't stop looping. Through the moments he sees glimpses of you in strangers, in songs, in memories that hit out of nowhere. It's not revenge, it's reality. He made a decision, and now he has to live in the space that decision created. Without you, without access, without peace. Because peace now lives with you, and that's what hurts the most. He let you go. Maybe he didn't fight. Maybe he didn't see your value. Maybe he thought he had time. But now, karma's doing what you no longer have taught. It's teaching him the weight of what he lost. But this isn't really about him anymore, is it? Because the real win isn't that he regrets losing you. It's that you stopped losing yourself trying to be enough for someone who wasn't ready. You've outgrown the version of you that begged to be chosen. And now, you choose you, every day, with more peace, more clarity, more self-respect. And that's not karma, that's just growth. And it looks really, really good on you.